I would leave them on all the time. The only time that you might want to turn them off if you had a big PA and you had like a kick drum or a bass guitar or something like that, you might want to turn them off. The rest of the time on. Pad, that's when you turn this gain control all the way down and you're still, when you use your pre-fader listen, you're still peaking. You can hit this pad. If, for instance, if I do this and you can see the level there, if I hit the pad, I'm way down now. See, I'm right at the bottom of the scale, and if I undo the pad, it comes back. So if you want to put a line level signal into one of the mic inputs, you can do that. You're going to need the pad. Gain. You want this as high as you can stand it without clipping ever. So that's where your pre-fader listen comes in.
And by clipping, you mean going into the orange?
Into the red.
Into the red.
Yeah, so if I go up to, well, there's red there, see, peak, 1,
Yeah.
2, hey. So you don't want that. You're gonna be somewhere between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, depending on the strength of the singer. The reason you want your gain here and not further down in the mixing chain is because that gives you the lowest overall noise. Because any noise here, if this isn't giving you as much as it can, will end up being amplified by any other gain.
So in other words, use your gain as much as you can and use your actual levels at a lower point.
Correct, yes. So generally speaking, the way that a typical channel gets set up is this is at 0, this is at 0, and then you adjust this so that it's where you want it.
Okay.
Without clipping. You do want to use your pre-fader listen and peaking around 0. That way, if it gets louder during the performance, you're not going to be clipping.
Now, when you talk about the pre-fader, the PFL,
Yes.
is that what it's called?
Yep.
You only want to do that one channel at a time?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see what else is here. Compressor. Now that's something that I don't have on any of my mixers. And here's the thing about compressors. If you use them sparingly, if you have too much compression on a vocal mic, you'll find it'll go into feedback when you're not singing. So you might want to read the instructions on that and see what they tell you. But I would just, it's useful as a limiter. It's not useful for vocals as anything else but a limiter.
Is it more useful for an instrument like a guitar?
It's still going to probably cause it to feedback. The problem with a compressor is that it drops the gain when you have a high level going in, but then when you stop, the gain goes back up again. So if you set your compressor at some point, you set your master gain at some level so that when they're actually singing, it's the right level. When they stop singing, that gain's going to come up, and it could put you into feedback.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's important. So I don't know. I don't think I'd use these things more than 9 o'clock, and I'd keep them off unless you really find that you need them.
Okay.
EQ. You've got a 3-way EQ here. This is really to taste. I find that with a typical vocal mic, I'll give it a little bit of high frequency and a little bit less low frequency, and I find that's usually all I need. And I
What
use
about
as
your
little
bass?
EQ as possible. When you say bass,
Well, you're low
frequency. That's
Low frequency, excuse
So
me.
a little less low frequency, a little bit more high frequency. I leave the mid in the middle unless I can tell that I need it. And you'll be able to tell if somebody's just sounds too MIDI.
Yeah.
You can drop this a little bit.
Or if you
Otherwise-
have a guitar that's in open tuning and you've got a lot of bassing out, I've noticed that sometimes when I have a performer at my open mics, they'll tune their guitar down to a half step, down to get more bass. And sometimes I notice it over basses on the PA.
Yeah. So this high pass filter should help, and you can give it less low end. I see that somebody's giving it a lot less low end on these two, for instance.
Yes.
I generally, that's about as much as I ever go. But it may be, of course, my speakers are pretty flat, so that's all I ever needed. I don't know if you do stage monitors or not.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to want to use your aux 1 as the send for stage monitors. You want it to be in pre-fader mode, because otherwise, when you raise this gain, it's going to go up in the monitors, and then that could cause them to feedback.
So you would do what? You would push that button in?
Yes, this button should be pressed in for pre-fader.
Okay.
You do not have the option of pre-fader on your second aux out. That could be used. You don't have effects, do you, on this?
No, that's one of the
That could be used
weaknesses.
with effects to send as an effect send, for instance.
So if you were to hook up, if by that do you mean if you had a separate
Echo
board?
unit or something.
Oh, so a stomp box type thing.
Yeah, you have to watch it, because when you're dealing with mixers, you're dealing with line levels, and most stomp boxes deal with guitar level. So what you'll find is that if you use a stomp box, you would take the aux 2 output, which is here. Your
Okay.
aux 1 output's going to go to your stage monitors.
Okay.
Your aux 2 output would go to an echo unit, and then the return from there comes back in. You don't have a return, do you? You'd have to go in through one of the channels. You could go in here, for instance, go in 11 or 12 from the return, and then use this as your echo return, or whatever, your effects master. And of course you can put a music player into those. Let's see, what else do you have? It's annoying that they do this, but they never give you the full number of microphones.
Right. But yet it's XLR. So basically, are they telling you there by having the last two be XLRs that those are better for vocal mics? Or
No.
No?
No. What they're telling you is that they didn't use up the space for the line inputs with these pads and high pass filters. So
when I use a microphone in here for the first time recently, it seemed like it worked fine.
you may have, these compressors may have been giving you trouble when you tried to use a mic in here.
No, they're fine in the first four channels, but then we were limited, see?
Yes.
We wanted to have
There's no problem using microphones in these.
Okay.
The only real difference between these channels and these channels is there's no compressor. You've got separate line inputs, left and right, whereas here line input is just a mono input.
So if you had a keyboard, you'd probably, and it had those RCA, or it had,
Phone.
yeah, the phone jack kind of outputs,
Yes.
You would plug them into
You
5
could
or
plug them
6.
into here, for instance,
Okay.
these two, and then this would be your keyboard level.
Okay.
And again, you've got a gain, and you use your pre-fader to listen in the same manner to set your levels so that you're not clipping. And you do have a high-pass filter on these two, but it's way down here. So that's the same control as this control, but it's there, and they're both pressed in.
So you wouldn't use those necessarily with microphones?
No, I would.
You would, the high-pass filter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The only time I wouldn't use the high-pass filter is with a kick drum or a bass guitar.
Okay.
Or some other bass instrument where you want that extra low frequency. But chances are your speakers can't handle it anyway.
Right.
So there's no point in ever having them off.
Okay, that's good to know.
What else? Phantom power, if you have active DIs or something like that, you'll need to turn your phantom power on. If the phantom power is on, you want to make sure that you never plug anything in or unplug anything with the gains up, because you'll get a really loud pop through the system, which could damage your speakers.
Okay. So when you have, a situation where you've got I've had people come to my open mics that have kind of wonky guitar pickups that were installed afterwards on an acoustic guitar,
Right.
and some of them need phantom power. They would go into this input here?
Any one of these inputs should get phantom power, but it's possible that only these two get phantom power. I can't tell based on, actually, no, I don't have my DIs with me, or I could plug a DI in here and tell you, oh yeah, the phantom's on those.
Okay.
But if you had a DI that had an LED on it, oh wait a minute, I can do it. Pause for a minute.
Yeah.